she thought it was trash. Just another forgotten thing the world had thrown away. But when the baby opened his glowing red eyes and lightning flickered beneath his pale skin, Chinning knew she'd found something impossible. He had no heartbeat, no warmth, only a desperate cry that echoed through the fog-soaked alleys of Grimvale City. She could have run. She should have. Instead, she wrapped him in her orange cleaner's vest and whispered, "You're not trash anymore." She didn't know the Vampire King had been burning cities searching for this child. And she didn't know that her single act of compassion would rewrite the fate of two species forever. If you want to know how a simple act of kindness turned into a war between immortals and humans, stay with me. And before we begin, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, because this story will shake you. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. The fog rolled through Grimvale City's industrial quarter like a living thing, thick and wet and cold enough to bite. It was 3:47 in the morning, and Chinning Witiker's breath came out in white clouds as she dragged another trash bag toward the collection point. Her orange safety vest was the only bright thing in the darkness, catching the dim glow of the single working street lamp. She should have been afraid, working alone this late. But fear was a luxury Chinning couldn't afford. Not when the night shift differential paid double. Not when her landlord had left another eviction notice on her door. Not when her brother's grave still needed a proper headstone. So she kept her head down and tried not to think about the stories. The ones whispered at the depot about workers who vanished on overnight routes. About bodies found drained near the warehouses, throats opened like torn paper. The city called them overdoses, gang violence. But the way people locked their doors after sunset, they knew better. Chinning grabbed the last bag from behind the old textile factory when the streetlight above her flickered. Once. Twice. Then she heard it, a thin, broken cry that didn't sound entirely human. She froze. The cry came again, sharper, desperate. From deeper in the alley, past the dumpster. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away. The missing persons reports had been climbing. Just last week they found a man behind the brewery, his body pale as marble, like something had drunk him empty. The cry pierced the fog again. Weaker now. Fading. Chinning's hands shook as she pulled her flashlight and pushed deeper into the alley. "This is stupid," she whispered. "This is how people die." But her feet kept moving. She swept the beam across rusted metal and broken pallets until she saw it, a black garbage bag, trembling between two waste containers. "Please don't be what I think it is," she breathed, kneeling down. She tore the bag open. A baby. No more than a few months old, wrapped in torn, soaked cloth. But this was no ordinary child. Its skin was translucent, like porcelain lit from within. Veins glowed faintly blue across its chest and arms. When its eyes snapped open, they burned crimson. And in its open mouth, two small, sharp fangs. Chinning gasped and stumbled back, her flashlight clattering to the ground. Blue lightning crackled across the infant's skin. The streetlight exploded in sparks. "Run," her mind screamed. But she couldn't. Because beneath the impossible horror, glowing eyes, blue fire, tiny fangs, there was a truth she couldn't ignore. This was a child. Abandoned. Dying. The baby's skin felt like ice when her trembling fingers touched it. Its chest barely moved. Those crimson eyes stared up at her with something that broke her completely: hope. "Oh, sweetheart," Chinning whispered. She stripped off her orange vest and wrapped the infant against her chest. "What happened to you?" The baby was unnaturally cold, like it had been dead for hours. But it was breathing. Its tiny fist curled weakly against her uniform. "You're safe now," she said, though her whole body shook. "I promise." She carried him into the abandoned factory, found her emergency corner, and tried everything: water, sugar water, anything to help. The child wouldn't take it. Its cries grew weaker. She was watching this impossible thing die and had no idea how to stop it. In desperation, she began to hum. An old melody her brother Aaron used to sing when she was scared. sad and sweet and ancient. The baby's eyes opened. Its tiny fist gripped her finger with sudden strength. The whimpering stopped. "Thank God," Chinning gasped, tears streaming. She looked down and saw a mark on its wrist, a symbol like a crown fused with a crescent moon, glowing crimson. She'd seen it before, spray-painted on warehouse walls, carved in the old cathedral stones. Always with the same whispered words, "The Crown of Night." The Frost King's seal. This wasn't just a vampire child. This was royalty. And someone had tried to throw it away. If this story is pulling at your heart, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, would you have run or stayed? Now, back to what happened next. Chinning's eyes shot to the windows. The fog had thickened impossibly. Whoever abandoned this baby might be watching. "I won't let them hurt you," she whispered fiercely. She locked the door, pulled the shades, settled in the corner with sight lines to both entrances. She kept humming, and the baby, Aaron, she decided to name him, after her brother, settled peacefully for the first time in days. She didn't know that 5 miles away, a vampire king was tearing his throne room apart. She didn't know the lullaby she hummed was sung only by vampire queens for 1,000 years. And she didn't know that by saving this child, she'd just sealed her own fate. Outside, something ancient caught the scent of royal blood mixed with human compassion and went still. King Ethan Frost's head snapped up, eyes burning crimson. "No," he breathed. "It cannot be." Thunder rolled across Grimvale. The night held its breath. And in the distance came the sound of wings made of shadow and vengeance. What happens when an immortal king discovers the mortal woman who saved his son? Subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is only the beginning. Drop a comment. Would you have saved baby Aaron? Now, let me tell you how a vampire king learned what it meant to be human. What happens when an immortal king discovers the mortal woman who saved his son? Subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is only the beginning. Drop a comment. Would you have saved baby Aaron? Now, let me tell you how a vampire king learned what it meant to be human. To understand what happened next, to understand the war about to descend upon Chinning and the infant prince in her arms, you need to know the story behind the story. About King Ethan Frost. About the queen he lost. About the night his world ended and his heart turned to ice. 3 days before Chinning found Aaron in that alley, something terrible happened in the immortal realm. The Frost Citadel, carved into mountains beyond mortal sight, had stood impregnable for 1,000 years. King Ethan Frost ruled the vampire dominion with his queen, Selene, at his side, her wisdom tempering his wrath, her compassion softening his ancient cruelty. That night, betrayal came from within. Lord Kareth, Ethan's most trusted advisor, led a coup. Rebel vampires poured through passages he'd left unguarded, their blades coated in silver and blessed ash. While Ethan fought in the throne room, they reached the queen's chamber. By the time he tore through his enemies and reached her, Selene lay in a pool of shimmering blood, her throat opened, her amber eyes staring sightless at the ceiling. In her arms, empty space where their infant son had been sleeping. Ethan's rage shattered mountains. He killed Kareth slowly, breaking every bone. And with his final breath, the traitor laughed, "Your heir is ash, Frost." We fed him to the dawn. For 3 days, Ethan searched. He tore apart the citadel stone by stone, hunted every rebel, scoured the mortal realm. They found nothing. No body. No trace. Only an empty blanket. Ethan retreated to his throne, hollow and broken. Without Selene's mercy, without his heir's future, he became what he'd been 1,000 years ago, a monster. Cold. Merciless. Empty. He sat motionless in darkness, eyes closed, feeling nothing. Until the 3rd night, when something impossible reached him across the distance. A melody. Faint and ancient. The royal mourning song, sung only by queens of the Frost bloodline, keyed to royal blood, designed to calm heirs in distress. But Selene was dead. And no mortal should know that song. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's go back to Chinning, who knew none of this. Who only knew she had an impossible child in her arms and dawn was breaking over Grimvale City. Chinning waited until full sunrise before leaving the factory. She couldn't risk the streets in darkness, not with something this impossible cradled against her chest. When the first gray light crept through the broken windows, she wrapped Erin tighter in her orange vest and made her way home on foot, avoiding the main roads. Her apartment was a fourth-floor walk-up in the Southside district, one room with a hot plate, a mattress on the floor, peeling paint, and a radiator that barely worked. But it had a lock. She bolted the door and laid Erin gently on her mattress, surrounded by every pillow and blanket she owned. In the morning light, he looked even more unnatural. His translucent skin seemed to glow faintly. The network of blue veins beneath pulsed with their own rhythm. And his eyes, those crimson eyes, followed her every movement with an intelligence no infant should possess. He was still cold. Terribly, impossibly cold. "Okay, sweetheart," Chinning whispered, her hands shaking. "Let's figure out what you need." She tried warm milk first, diluted and tested on her wrist. Erin turned his head away, mouth clamped shut. She tried water. Sugar water. Even honey on her fingertip. Nothing worked. The baby wouldn't feed. Wouldn't cry. Just stared with those burning eyes, his tiny chest rising and falling in a rhythm too slow, too measured. Like something mimicking breath rather than needing it. Desperate, Chinning pressed her fingers to his neck, searching for a pulse. Nothing. She tried his wrist. His chest. Nothing. No heartbeat. No pulse. Yet he was clearly alive, moving, watching, responding. "What are you?" she breathed. Thunder cracked outside, though the morning had been clear. Lightning flashed through her window, and Erin's entire body lit up from within. Blue energy crawled beneath his skin like living electricity, spider webbing from his chest to his fingertips. Her ceiling bulb exploded. Chinning gasped, but immediately reached for him. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." Erin wasn't crying. He stared at the ceiling, those red eyes wide, as blue lightning pulsed through him in waves. When the storm rumbled again, his skin flickered in response. "You're connected to it," Chinning whispered. "To the storm." She thought of the drained bodies, the whispered rumors. "You're not human. You're something else." She picked him up despite the cold and carried him to the window. Dark clouds were gathering over Grimvale, swirling in unnatural spirals. Erin's eyes tracked the storm. The blue veins pulsed brighter. That's when she noticed his left wrist. A mark. A symbol burned into his pale flesh, a crown fused with a crescent moon, rendered in deep crimson that shimmered like it was alive. Chinning's blood turned to ice. She'd seen that symbol before. Spray-painted on warehouse walls. Carved into cathedral stones. Always with the same whispered words, the crown of night. The Frost King's seal. This wasn't just any vampire child. This was royalty. This was an heir. And someone had tried to murder him. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered, tears streaming. "I'm nobody. Just a cleaner. I can't protect you from whatever did this." Erin's tiny hand gripped her finger. Without thinking, Chinning began to hum. That melody from the alley. The one her brother used to sing. Sad and sweet and impossibly old. The moment the first note left her lips, the mark on Erin's wrist blazed to life. Crimson light erupted, flooding the room. Erin's entire body began to glow, not blue lightning, but deep red radiance pulsing with her humming. His eyes widened. His grip tightened. And for the first time, he looked peaceful. The blue veins settled into steady rhythm. His temperature rose slightly. The tension in his tiny body eased. Outside, the storm clouds twisted into impossible spirals. Rain fell upward for one heartbeat before crashing down. And 5 miles away, in ruins beyond mortal sight, King Ethan Frost's eyes snapped open in his throne room of shadows. He'd been sitting motionless for 3 days, believing his son was ash and his world was ended. Then he heard it clearly now, that melody carried on winds that shouldn't exist. That song sung by a voice that wasn't Celine's. Sung to a child whose blood called across the distance like a beacon screaming alive. Ethan rose from his throne, crimson eyes burning in the darkness. His voice shattered the stillness. Find him. If you're on the edge of your seat wondering what happens when an ancient vampire king collides with a compassionate cleaner, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what do you think Ethan will do when he finds Channing? Now let's find out. If you're on the edge of your seat wondering what happens when an ancient vampire king collides with a compassionate cleaner, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what do you think Ethan will do when he finds Channing? Now let's find out. The moment Ethan Frost whispered those two words, find him, the citadel erupted into motion. Vampire guards who had stood frozen for 3 days suddenly scattered like shadows fleeing dawn. The shadow-born hunters emerged from the depths where they'd been waiting, their forms barely solid, more smoke than flesh. The seer collapsed, her blind eyes still weeping crimson, her visions overwhelming her ancient mind. But Ethan barely noticed. He stood before the shattered windows of his throne room, his pale hands gripping the stone ledge hard enough to crack it. Outside, the sky twisted in response to his emotions, storm clouds spiraling into impossible formations, lightning crackling between them like veins of fire. His son was alive. After 3 days of believing the worst, after mourning in the darkness where Celine's blood still stained the floor of her chamber, after accepting that his line would die with him, suddenly, impossibly, there was hope. But that hope came wrapped in fury. A human, he said, his voice low and deadly. A mortal dares to touch the heir of the Frost throne. His remaining council members kept their distance. They'd seen their king like this before, centuries ago, before Celine had gentled him, when Ethan Frost was known not as a ruler, but as a force of nature. The Devastator. The shadow that hungers. Lord Kareth stepped forward carefully. He was an elegant vampire, silver-haired and distinguished, who had served the throne for 300 years. He'd been away on diplomatic mission when the coup happened, or so he claimed. Now he approached his king with measured reverence. My lord, Kareth said smoothly, perhaps the human found the child by accident. Perhaps she means no harm. No harm. Ethan turned, and his eyes blazed crimson. She holds my son. She sings the Queen's song, though no mortal lips should know those words. She has either bewitched him with sorcery, or he stopped, unwilling to finish the thought. Or she saved him. The possibility gnawed at him. Why would a human risk everything to protect a vampire child? Humans feared his kind. Hunted them. Killed them when they could. The idea that one would cradle his heir, sing to him, keep him safe, it made no sense. Unless she wanted something. Unless this was part of a deeper plot. Summon the hunters, Ethan commanded. I want that woman found. I want my son returned. And if she has harmed one hair on his head, his power exploded outward, shattering every remaining window in the throne room. I will paint Grimvale City in her blood. And if she hasn't harmed him, my lord? Kareth asked, his expression unreadable. Ethan paused. The question hung in the air like smoke. Then I will learn why she did what she did, he said finally. Before I kill her anyway. No human touches royal blood and lives. But beneath his rage, beneath the centuries of programming that told him humans were lesser things, there was something else stirring. Something Celine had planted in him during their 1,000 years together. Curiosity. His seer had shown him the vision, a woman in an orange vest, kneeling in rain and filth, cradling his son like he was precious. Like he mattered. Her face had been streaked with tears, her hands bleeding from tearing open trash bags, her voice breaking as she hummed the royal mourning song. She had looked desperate. Not calculating. Not cruel. She had looked like someone trying to save a dying child. Why? The question burned in Ethan's mind. Why would you risk yourself for something you should fear? My king, one of the shadow-born hunters materialized beside him, its voice like wind through a graveyard. We have the scent. The child's blood signature is clear. He is in the Southside District. 4th floor. The woman is with him. Ethan's jaw clenched. Is my son safe? Is he harmed? The hunter paused. He is calm, my lord. His vital signs are stronger than they were. The woman sings to him still. He responds to her voice. Stronger. The word hit Ethan like a physical blow. His son was stronger with this human than he'd been in the 3 days since the attack. This mortal woman, with no training, no knowledge of vampire young, had somehow kept his heir alive when Ethan's own guards had failed to protect him. Prepare for descent, Ethan said quietly. We go tonight. And we go carefully. I will not risk my son's life in the extraction. What of the human, my lord? Kareth asked. Ethan's eyes glowed like dying stars. Bring her with him. Alive. I want answers before I pass judgment. As his court scrambled to obey, Ethan returned to the window. The storm outside was his storm, an extension of his will, his rage, his grief. He let it build, let it gather strength. Somewhere in that city of mortals, a woman held his entire world in her bleeding hands. And Ethan Frost was coming for her. 3 days you've had him, he whispered to the wind. 3 days you've kept what's mine. Tonight, human, you'll learn what it means to steal from the King of Shadows. He dissolved into darkness, his form scattering into 1,000 ravens that poured through the broken windows and disappeared into the storm. The hunt had truly begun. The Vampire King is descending on Grimvale, and Chinning has no idea what's coming. If you're hooked on this story, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when these two worlds collide. Comment below, Team Ethan or Team Chinning. Now, let's see what Chinning's life has become. 5 days. Chinning had been living with the impossible for 5 days. Aaron didn't cry often, but when he did, lights exploded. He didn't eat, didn't sleep normally, and his skin remained that unsettling translucent pale. But he was stronger now. The blue lightning beneath his skin pulsed with more vitality. His crimson eyes tracked her with growing awareness. And the mark on his wrist glowed brighter every time she hummed. Chinning had called in sick to work for 3 days, burning through what little sick leave she had. But her rent was due, and the landlord had already threatened eviction. She couldn't hide forever. So on the 6th morning, she wrapped Aaron in layers of blankets, tucked him into an old backpack she'd modified with padding, and returned to the depot. The other cleaners noticed immediately. Chinning, girl, you look like death, Rosa said, her kind face creased with concern. You sure you should be working? I'm fine, Chinning lied, adjusting the backpack carefully. Just had the flu. What's in the bag? Another worker, Marcus, eyed it suspiciously. You know Hernandez don't allow personal items on the routes. Medical supplies, Chinning said quickly. I'm still recovering. Just give me space, okay? She grabbed her assignment sheet and fled to her van before anyone could ask more questions. But throughout the day, strange things kept happening. At the first stop, Aaron stirred in the backpack. Chinning had parked in a loading zone, trying to quickly empty the bins behind a closed restaurant. She heard him make a soft sound, not quite a cry, but close. Every streetlight on the block flickered. Come on, sweetheart, she whispered, reaching back to touch him through the blankets. Just a little longer. Stay quiet for me. She hummed under her breath, that melody that always calmed him, and felt the backpack grow warmer. The mark was glowing again. She could sense it even without seeing it. By midday, she couldn't avoid the depot anymore. She had to check in, grab new route assignments, use the bathroom. She brought the backpack inside, clutching it close. Rosa cornered her in the break room. Chinning, what is going on with you? You're acting so strange. And what's with the bag? You guarding gold in there? It's nothing, Rosa. Please just... Rosa reached for the backpack. Let me help you, Mija. Whatever it is. Her fingers brushed the fabric. Aaron's eyes snapped open inside. Every light in the break room exploded simultaneously. Glass rained down as the fluorescent tubes burst. Workers screamed. The room plunged into darkness except for one source of light, the backpack, glowing faintly red from within. Santa Maria, Rosa breathed, stumbling backward. What the hell is in there? I have to go. Chinning grabbed the bag and ran. She heard the shouting behind her, heard Marcus yelling about calling security, heard Rosa crying. But she didn't stop. She crashed through the depot doors and ran into the gray afternoon light, her heart hammering. Aaron was making sounds now, distressed whimpers. The blankets around him were starting to smoke. No, 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 Chinning gasped. Hold on, baby. Just hold on. She ran through Grimvale's twisting streets, heading for home. The South Side district was only a mile away. She could make it. She had to make it. But she felt it before she saw it, the sensation of being watched. Chinning slowed, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The street was nearly empty, just a few pedestrians hurrying home before dark. But every shadow seemed too deep. Every alley seemed to hide something. Footsteps echoed behind her. She spun. No one there. Just fog rolling through the street like something alive. The footsteps came again. Closer. Chinning ran. She didn't stop until she reached her building, crashed through the entrance, and stumbled up 4 flights of stairs. Her hands shook so badly she could barely get the key in the lock. Inside, she bolted every lock and pulled down every shade. Aaron was crying now, a sound that made her windows vibrate. She lifted him from the backpack and nearly dropped him. His skin was blazing hot. The blue veins were pulsing so rapidly they looked like strobe lights. What's wrong? She begged. What do you need? She started humming desperately. The song poured out of her, faster than before, more urgent. Aaron's cries softened, but didn't stop. His eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. Or warning. Outside her window, she heard it, the sound of wings. Massive wings, beating against the storm that had suddenly rolled in. Thunder shook her building. Chinning grabbed Aaron and backed into the corner of her apartment, the one spot where she couldn't be seen from outside. Something landed on her fire escape. The metal groaned under immense weight. A shadow fell across her window shade, tall, broad, impossibly shaped. Red eyes glowed through the fabric. No, Chinning whispered, clutching Aaron. Please no. But the shadows outside were multiplying. More figures landing. More wings beating. More crimson eyes igniting in the darkness. They'd found her. 5 miles away, in the ruins where he'd set up his forward command, King Ethan Frost received the report from his kneeling scout. We've found them, my king. The Southside District, 4th floor. The woman has the child. She's protecting him still. Ethan stood slowly, his cloak billowing in winds that came from nowhere. His eyes burned with ancient power. Then the night shall remember who its master is, he said quietly, and disappeared into shadows that swallowed the world. Everything Chinning thought she knew is about to change. If you're gripping your seat, smash that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what would you do in Chinning's position? The confrontation is coming, and it's going to shake everything. Let's go. The storm hit Grimvale like the wrath of God. Lightning split the sky in jagged branches, illuminating the city in strobe flash moments of blue-white terror. Thunder didn't just rumble. It detonated, shaking windows, setting off car alarms, sending people running for shelter. But Chinning couldn't run. Not anymore. She'd tried. She'd grabbed Aaron, thrown what little she owned into a bag, and fled her apartment down the fire escape. But they were everywhere, shadows with red eyes, figures that moved too fast to track, the sensation of being herded like prey. And now she found herself in the one place this nightmare had started, the alley behind the old textile factory. The same pile of trash bags. The same flickering streetlight. The same darkness pressing in from all sides. Aaron screamed in her arms, not a baby's cry, but something primal. Blue lightning crackled across his skin, arcing to the wet pavement, scorching black marks into concrete. "Shoo, baby, shoo." Chinning rocked him desperately, her voice breaking. "I've got you. I won't let them." "You won't let them what, mortal?" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Deep, cold, ancient beyond measure. Chinning spun, her back against the brick wall. The fog parted like a curtain, and he stepped through. King Ethan Frost was nothing like she'd imagined. He was tall, impossibly tall, his form wrapped in a cloak that seemed woven from liquid shadow. His skin was marble pale, perfect and terrible. His hair fell like black silk around a face that could have been carved by angels before they fell. But his eyes, God, his eyes. They burned crimson, lit from within by something older than human memory. And they were fixed on the child in her arms with an intensity that made Chinning's breath stop. "That child does not belong to you," Ethan said, each word edged with frost. Chinning clutched Aaron tighter. The baby had gone quiet, staring at the vampire king with wide red eyes. "He's not trash," she heard herself say, her voice shaking but steady. "Not anymore." Ethan's expression didn't change, but something flickered in those burning eyes. "You dare speak to me? You, who stole the heir to the Frost Throne? You, who sing songs meant only for vampire queens?" "I didn't steal him." Chinning's fear turned to anger. "I found him. Thrown away like garbage. Dying. Alone. I saved him. You touched royal blood without permission. That crime alone warrants death." Ethan took a step forward. The shadows around him thickened. "Surrender my son. Now. And I may grant you a quick end." "No." The word came out before Chinning could stop it. Ethan froze. Behind him, she could sense other vampires emerging from the fog, tall figures with weapons, with eyes like dying coals. But none of them moved. They were waiting for their king's command. "No," Ethan repeated, as if he'd never heard the word before. "He needs me," Chinning said, tears streaming now. "I don't know why, but he does. He won't eat. Won't sleep. But he calms when I sing. He survived because I found him. Because I didn't walk away. You can kill me, I know you can, but not before you answer one question." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You bargain with me? You dare." "Why was he in the trash?" Chinning shouted over the thunder. "Your son. Your heir. Why was he thrown away to die alone? Where were you?" The words hit Ethan like physical blows. His perfect face twisted with something that looked almost like pain. "My queen was murdered," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried over the storm. "My citadel was attacked. They took him from her dead arms. I searched for 3 days. I would have burned this world to ash to find him. And I discovered that a mortal has what is mine." "Then look at him," Chinning said desperately. "Really look at him. He's stronger than when I found him. Healthier. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's working. He's alive because..." Aaron made a sound. Not a cry. Not a whimper. A coo. And his tiny hand reached out not toward his father, but toward Chinning's face. The moment his fingers touched her cheek, something exploded through the alley. Red light, pure and blinding, erupted from Aaron's mark. It spiraled upward and outward, wrapping around both baby and woman in cocoon of crimson energy. Chinning gasped as she felt something surge through her body, warmth, power, connection. Aaron's life force was intertwining with hers. Ethan staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he breathed. The red light pulsed once, twice, 3 times. Then it faded, leaving Chinning gasping and Aaron calm in her arms. But she could feel it now, a thread connecting her heart to his. As real as bone. As necessary as blood. The two-bound soul, one of the other vampires whispered from the shadows. "The prophecy." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. His whole body trembled. When he looked at Chinning again, there was something new in his eyes, fear. "If I separate you," he said slowly, "it will kill him." "I know," Chinning whispered, though she hadn't known until this moment. Ethan stood frozen, caught between rage and helplessness. His son, his heir, his only remaining connection to Celine, was bound to a human. A mortal. A woman who should mean nothing. But she meant everything now. "Please," Chinning said softly. "I don't understand this. Any of this. But he's just a baby. He's scared. He needs silence." Ethan's command cracked like a whip. He turned to his warriors, his face a mask of cold fury. "Bring them both. Alive. Unharmed. If any of you touch her wrongly, I'll erase you from existence." The vampires moved forward. "No, wait." Chinning tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. Shadow hands gripped her arms, gentle but unbreakable. Aaron began to cry, his power flickering. The last thing Chinning saw before the darkness swallowed her was Ethan's face, inches from hers, his red eyes burning into her soul. "You've bound yourself to my son, mortal," he whispered. "Which means your life is no longer yours. It belongs to him. And therefore to me." Then the world went black, and Chinning felt herself falling through shadows that tasted like ice and midnight. When consciousness left her, she was still clutching Aaron. And somewhere in the darkness, she felt Ethan's presence following. Hunting. Claiming. Changed. Chinning has been taken to the vampire citadel, but what awaits her there will test everything she believes about monsters and mercy. Subscribe if you're hooked, and comment, is Ethan villain or victim? You won't want to miss what happens next. Chinning woke to beauty that felt like a nightmare. She was lying on cold stone in a vast hall lit by crimson light filtering through stained glass windows. Gothic arches soared overhead, carved with symbols that hurt to look at. Pillars of black marble rose like frozen shadows. And everywhere, perched on balconies, standing along the walls, seated in throne-like chairs, were vampires. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. All with those same burning red eyes. All watching her. Aaron whimpered in her arms. She realized with relief that they hadn't separated them. He was still with her, still wrapped in her jacket, still alive. "Rise, human." The command came from the front of the hall. Chinning struggled to her feet, her legs shaking. The Vampire Council sat in a semicircle of obsidian thrones. Ancient faces. Cold expressions. And in the center, seated higher than the rest, was Ethan. He looked different here. More regal. More terrifying. His crown was a simple circlet of black metal, but it seemed to drink the light around it. His eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her want to disappear. "State your name," one of the council members commanded. A female vampire with white hair and a voice like breaking glass. "C.H. Chinning." "Chinning Witiker." "Human," the vampire sneered. "You stand accused of desecrating royal blood, of touching the air without permission, of using forbidden sorcery to bind yourself to the prince. How do you answer?" "I didn't use sorcery," Chinning said, clutching Aaron. I found him. I saved him." Laughter rippled through the hall. "Cruel. Disbelieving. Saved?" Another council member rose, a tall male vampire with silver hair. "Lord Kareth." His smile was poisonous. "You expect us to believe that a mortal janitor stumbled upon the royal heir by accident? That you knew the Queen's song by chance? That your bond with the prince is innocent?" "I don't know the Queen's song," Chinning insisted. "I was just humming something my brother used to." "Lies." Kareth turned to address the council. "This woman is a witch. A desecrator. She has bewitched the air with human magic. I propose immediate execution before her corruption spreads." The hall erupted in agreement. Voices demanding her death. Demanding Aaron be cleansed. Demanding blood. Chinning backed against the wall, her heart hammering. Aaron began to cry, his tiny body trembling. Silence. Ethan's single word cut through the chaos like a blade. The hall went deathly quiet. He stood slowly, descending from his throne. Every eye followed him as he crossed the floor toward Chinning. She pressed herself against the cold stone, unable to retreat further. Ethan stopped inches from her. His eyes searched her face, looking for something she didn't understand. You claim you saved him, he asked quietly. Yes. Why? The question hung in the air. Chinning looked down at Aaron, then back at the Vampire King. Because he was dying, she whispered. Because he was a baby. Because no one else would. Something flickered across Ethan's face. Too fast to read. My king, Kareth interjected smoothly. Surely you don't believe this, mortals. I believe what I see, Ethan interrupted, not taking his eyes off Chinning. I see my son. Alive. Stronger than he should be after 3 days in mortal hands. I see a bond that my seer confirms is genuine, not sorcery, but something older. Something from the prophecies we thought were myth. He turned to address the council. The two-bound soul. A mortal whose compassion would bridge our species. A human who would save a vampire child and bind her life to his, reigniting the mercy our kind abandoned centuries ago. Ethan's voice echoed through the hall. My son has chosen her. And I will honor his choice. The council exploded in outrage. This is madness. She's human filth. The prophecy is a children's tale. Enough. Ethan's power detonated outward. The windows cracked. The floor shook. Every vampire in the hall fell silent, many dropping to their knees. I am your king. And I say this, touch her and you answer to me. Aaron's cries were the only sound in the vast chamber. Then he did something that changed everything. The baby's power surged. Red light exploded from his small body, flooding the entire hall. Vampires cried out, shielding their eyes. The light was warm, not burning, but comforting. Like sunlight without pain. Like Celine's mercy made manifest. When it faded, every vampire in the room was staring at Aaron in shock. The queen's gift, someone whispered. He has her power. Her compassion. Chinning looked down at Aaron. His red eyes were glowing softly, and he was reaching for Ethan now. The first time he'd acknowledged his father. Ethan's expression cracked. For just a moment, Chinning saw past the king to the grieving father beneath. His hand trembled as he reached toward his son. Aaron's tiny fingers wrapped around Ethan's thumb. The Vampire King's eyes closed. A single red tear traced down his perfect face. You will be housed in the Western Tower, Ethan said without opening his eyes. You will be protected. You will not be harmed. He finally looked at Chinning. But you will not leave. You are bound to my son. Which means you are mine until I determine what to do with you. What about my life? Chinning asked desperately. My job, my home. Your life is forfeit the moment you touched royal blood. Be grateful I'm letting you keep it. Ethan turned away. Council dismissed. Guards, escort her to her chambers. As vampire soldiers moved to flank her, Chinning caught Kareth's expression across the hall. He was smiling. Not defeated. Not angry. Pleased. Like everything was going exactly according to plan. A chill ran down Chinning's spine that had nothing to do with the cold. She'd been so focused on surviving the king, she hadn't considered the others who might want her dead. And she had just been locked in a citadel with them. Chinning is trapped in a nest of vampires, and not all of them want the human alive. If you're nervous about what comes next, like and subscribe for the next chapter. Comment. Do you trust Ethan to protect her? Because the real danger is just beginning. The Western Tower was beautiful in the way nightmares could be beautiful. Chinning's chamber was a circular room with windows that showed only darkness and storm. The furniture was ornate, a four-poster bed draped in black silk, a fireplace that burned with blue flames, a cradle carved from ebony that had clearly been made for Aaron. But there were no doors she could lock. No way out except the spiral staircase that led down to halls patrolled by vampires. She was a prisoner dressed up as a guest. At least we're together, she whispered to Aaron, rocking him near the blue fire. As long as we're together, we can survive this. Aaron made a soft sound, his eyes tracking the flames. The mark on his wrist pulsed steadily, connected to her heartbeat now. She could feel it. The bond Ethan had mentioned. Her life tied to this impossible child's. Hours passed. No one came. No food, no explanation, no contact. Just the endless night pressing against the windows and the sensation of being watched from the shadows. Chinning tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Caratha's smile, heard the council's demands for her execution, felt the weight of hundreds of immortal eyes judging her, hating her, wanting her gone. Midnight came and went. That's when she heard it. Footsteps on the spiral stairs. Too many. Too quiet. Chinning grabbed Aaron and backed away from the door. Who's there? No answer. But the footsteps continued. Closer. Then they stopped just outside her archway. The king says she's protected, a voice hissed. Male. Unfamiliar. But Lord Careth says otherwise. Says the human dies tonight, and we blame it on her own clumsiness. Mortals are so fragile after all. Another voice laughed softly. And the child returns to proper vampire care, without the human corruption. Chinning's blood turned to ice. She looked frantically around the room. No weapons. No escape. Just her, a baby, and killers in the hallway. The first assassin stepped through the archway. He was young for a vampire, with dark hair and eyes that gleamed with cruelty. Two others followed behind him, all armed with silver blades that caught the blue firelight. Please, Chinning backed toward the window, clutching Aaron. Please don't do this. The king said. The king is blinded by sentiment, the leader said, advancing. But Lord Careth sees clearly. Humans are a disease. And you, little cleaner, are the infection that must be cut out. He lunged. Chinning screamed and twisted away. The blade missed her by inches, embedding in the stone wall. She ran toward the fireplace, but another assassin cut her off. She was cornered. Trapped. Aaron began to cry. Give us the child, the leader demanded, and we'll make your death quick. Never, Chinning gasped. She pressed Aaron against her chest, shielding him with her body. You'll have to go through me. As you wish. The assassin raised his blade, and Aaron screamed. Not a baby's cry. A sound that shook the tower to its foundations. Red light exploded from his small body, so bright it turned midnight into noon. Chinning felt the mark on his wrist burn against her skin, felt their bond ignite like a live wire. The assassins staggered back, shielding their eyes. But Aaron wasn't done. Blue lightning erupted from his tiny hands. It arced across the room in jagged branches, striking the attackers. They screamed as the energy tore through them, not burning their bodies, but something worse. Disintegrating them from within. Turning them to ash and shadow. In seconds, all three assassins were gone. Nothing remained but scorch marks on the stone floor and the smell of ozone. Aaron's cries stopped. The light faded. He slumped in Chinning's arms, exhausted, his skin pale as death. Oh God, Chinning gasped, sinking to her knees. Oh God, what did you? The tower door exploded inward. Ethan stormed through, his power crackling around him like a living storm. His eyes blazed with fury as he took in the scene, the ash marks, Chinning on the floor, Aaron unconscious in her arms. What happened? He demanded. Assassins, Chinning managed. They came to kill me. To take Aaron. He protected us. But now he won't wake up. Ethan was at her side in an instant, lifting Aaron from her arms with shocking gentleness. His hands glowed faintly as he examined his son, his expression tight with fear. He expended too much power, Ethan said. He's too young for this. His body can't handle. He stopped, his eyes snapping to Chinning. You're bleeding. She looked down. One of the blades had caught her arm. Blood was streaming down to her wrist, dripping onto the floor. Aaron's eyes snapped open. He stared at the blood with desperate hunger. No, Ethan breathed. Not yet. He's too young to. But Aaron reached for Chinning, whimpering. The mark on his wrist blazed red. He needs her, Ethan whispered, realization dawning. Not her blood. Her life force. The bond, it sustains him. Heals him. Chinning didn't hesitate. She pressed her bleeding arm closer to Aaron. Take what you need, baby. I'm here. Erin's tiny hand gripped her wrist, and the bond flared to life. Red energy flowed from Chinning into the child. Not painful, but draining. She felt her strength leaving her, flowing into him, healing the damage his power had caused. Erin's color returned. His breathing steadied. His eyes brightened. But Chinning's vision was blurring. Her legs gave out. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. Enough, he commanded, pulling Erin away. He'll drain you to death. Chinning gasped. He needs you alive, Ethan said fiercely. He laid Erin in the cradle, then turned back to her. His eyes fixed on her bleeding arm with an intensity that made her shiver. You saved him again, Ethan said quietly. With your own life force. Your own blood. He's just a baby, Chinning whispered. He's the heir to an immortal throne. And you're a mortal who should mean nothing. Ethan's jaw clenched. But you've become essential. The bond proves it. He needs you. He reached out and cupped her bleeding arm gently. His thumb traced the wound, and his expression shifted to something dangerous. This was meant for you, he said. Someone in my court tried to murder you under my protection. Kareth, Chinning breathed. They mentioned Kareth. Ethan's eyes erupted with hellfire. Did they? He stood, his power filling the room like a physical presence. When he spoke, his voice carried through the entire citadel. Council. Throne room. Now. Then he looked down at Chinning, and something in his expression softened. You saved my heir, he murmured. He knelt beside her, and before she could protest, he bit his own palm. Blood darker than human blood, shimmering with power, welled in his hand. Now I save you. What are you? He pressed his bleeding palm to her wounded arm. Chinning gasped as his blood fused with hers. It was cold fire, ancient power, something that should kill her but instead was healing her. Her wound closed. Her strength returned. And her eyes, when she caught her reflection in the window, flickered faintly red. What did you do? She whispered. Found us, Ethan said. You. Me. Erin. 3 souls tied together. You'll live longer now. Heal faster. And anyone who harms you harms my blood. His smile was terrifying. Which means they die screaming. He stood and turned toward the door. Rest. I have a traitor to kill. The blood bond is formed, but the real war is just beginning. If you're invested in this story, smash that subscribe button and comment. Team Ethan all the way now? Because what comes next will shake this entire world. The throne room had become a battlefield. By the time Chinning regained enough strength to follow, against every instinct telling her to stay hidden, the citadel was already burning. Not with normal fire, but with vampire power, crimson flames that consumed shadow, blue lightning that cracked obsidian pillars, darkness itself weaponized and turned against its own kind. She stumbled down the spiral stairs, Erin clutched against her chest. The baby was awake but quiet, his red eyes wide as he watched the chaos unfold below. We should go back, Chinning whispered. We should hide. But something drew her forward. The blood bond, she realized. She could feel Ethan now, his rage, his pain, his terrible purpose. It pulled at her like a rope tied around her heart. She reached the throne room's entrance and stopped, frozen by what she saw. The vampire council had split. Half the vampires in the hall fought for Ethan, their king, their loyalty absolute. But the other half, led by Lord Kareth, had revealed their true allegiance. Rebels. Traitors. The same faction that had murdered Queen Selene and tried to destroy Erin. And they were trying to finish what they'd started. You've grown weak, Frost. Kareth's voice rang through the chaos. He stood in the center of the carnage, his elegant facade stripped away to reveal the monster beneath. His eyes blazed with hatred. Your human pet has made you soft. The old king would have never hesitated. Would have never shown mercy to mortal filth. Ethan waded through the battle like death incarnate. His cloak billowed around him, transforming into wings of pure shadow. Every step he took cracked the stone floor. His power radiated outward in waves that sent lesser vampires flying. "You murdered my queen," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the thunder and screaming. "You stole my son. You fed my court lies while planning my destruction." He stopped 20 feet from Kareth, his eyes burning like dying stars. "Now face the king you made." Kareth smiled. "The king you were. Before that mortal witch poisoned you with compassion. Before you forgot what we are, predators. Conquerors. We don't bow to humans. We don't let them touch our heirs. We don't." "You don't understand what she did," Ethan interrupted quietly. "She saved him when you tried to murder him. She gave him mercy when our kind had abandoned it. She reminded me," his voice cracked. "She reminded me of why Selene loved our people. Why she believed we could be more than monsters." "Selene was a fool," Kareth spat. "And you're a bigger one for mourning her. The old ways are returning, Frost. With or without you." "Then without." Ethan moved. He crossed the distance in a blink, his speed beyond comprehension. Kareth barely had time to raise his blade before Ethan's hand closed around his throat. They clashed in an explosion of power that shook the citadel to its foundations. Silver blade met shadow claws. Ancient magic collided with royal fury. They fought across the throne room, destroying everything they touched, shattering thrones, cracking walls, tearing through stone like paper. But Chinning barely saw the fight. Because the bond was screaming at her. Something was wrong. Ethan was stronger, faster, more powerful, but Kareth was older. Had planned this. Had poisoned his blade with something that was burning through Ethan's defenses. "No," Chinning breathed. She felt it through the bond, Ethan weakening. Slowing. The poison spreading. Kareth sensed it too. His smile widened as he pressed his advantage, driving Ethan back toward the shattered windows. "Did you really think I'd face you unprepared?" Kareth laughed. "That blade is coated in blessed ash and the blood of the first vampires we killed. It's death itself, Frost. And you're already dying." Ethan stumbled. Black veins were spreading across his skin from where the blade had caught his shoulder. "When you fall," Kareth hissed, "I'll take your throne. Your son. And your precious human." He leaned closer. "I'll make her watch as I drain the child. Then I'll drain her. Slowly." Something in Chinning snapped. She didn't think. Didn't plan. She just ran. "Stop." Her voice cut through the battle. Vampires on both sides turned in shock as the human woman charged into the throne room, the royal heir in her arms. "Chinning, no," Ethan gasped. But she was already moving between him and Kareth. "You want to kill him?" She shouted at the traitor. "You'll have to go through me first." "Through us both." Kareth's eyes gleamed with malice. "With pleasure." He lunged. Chinning threw herself in front of Ethan, shielding him with her body. And Aaron exploded. The infant's power detonated outward in a supernova of red and blue light. It was the blood awakening from the prophecies, the moment when a vampire heir, bonded to a human soul, ignites with the combined power of both species. Compassion and fury. Mercy and wrath. Human heart and vampire strength. The blast tore through Kareth like he was made of paper. He screamed as the light consumed him, burning away not just his body, but his very essence. In seconds, nothing remained but ash drifting on supernatural wind. The other rebels tried to flee. Aaron's power chased them down, a wave of crimson judgment that left only loyalists standing. Then, as quickly as it started, the light died. Aaron slumped in Chinning's arms, unconscious. And Chinning felt the drain hit her like a freight train. She channeled the power through the bond. Let Aaron use her life force to fuel his awakening. It had saved them all. But it was killing her. Her legs gave out. The throne room spun. She felt herself falling. Ethan caught her. He cradled her against his chest, his face above hers, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never expected to see in a vampire king. Terror. "No," he whispered. "No, you don't get to do this. You don't get to save us and then leave." "Aaron," Chinning gasped. Is he alive? Safe? Because of you. Ethan's hands were shaking. But you're dying. The bond drained too much. Your heart is stopping. Chinning could feel it. The cold spreading through her chest. Her vision darkening at the edges. It's okay, she whispered. He's safe. That's all that matters. It's not okay. Ethan's voice cracked. Crimson tears streamed down his perfect face, vampire grief made manifest. You can't leave him. You can't leave, he stopped, his jaw clenching. Don't leave me. The words hung between them. Raw. Honest. Impossible. Chinning tried to smile. Take care of him. Tell him he was never trash. He was always. No. Ethan's eyes blazed. No. I didn't protect Celine. I failed her. But I won't fail you. He pulled Aaron into his other arm, holding both of them, his son and the mortal who'd saved them all. You bound yourself to my heir, Ethan whispered. Now I bind myself to you. All of me. All my power. Everything I am, it's yours. What are you? His lips crushed against hers. It wasn't a kiss. It was a blood oath. A soul binding. Ancient vampire magic flowing from his mouth to hers, his power flooding her dying body, his immortal life force fusing with her fading heartbeat. Chinning gasped as darkness and light collided inside her. Human and vampire. Mortal compassion and immortal strength. Her heart stuttered once, twice. Then restarted. Stronger than before. Her eyes snapped open. They burned crimson. The cleaner who saved a vampire prince just became something the world has never seen. If your heart is racing, subscribe now because the finale will leave you breathless. Comment. What do you think Chinning has become? The answer will shock you. Rain fell softly on the ruins of the throne room. The battle was over. The rebels were dead or fled. The loyal vampires knelt among the debris, watching their king with expressions of awe and fear. But Ethan saw none of them. His entire world had narrowed to the woman in his arms and the child she still held against her chest. Chinning's eyes flickered between human brown and vampire crimson, her body caught between two states of being. She wasn't human anymore, but she wasn't fully vampire either. She was something new. Something the prophecies had whispered about but no one truly believed could exist. The bridge. The two-bound soul. The mortal who would bind the species together and birth a new age. What did you do to me? Chinning whispered, staring at her hands. They looked the same, but she could feel the difference. Strength in her muscles. Sharpness in her senses. And the bond, oh God, the bond was everywhere now. She could feel Aaron's heartbeat like it was her own. Could feel Ethan's presence wrapped around her soul like armor. I saved you, Ethan said simply. The same way you saved my son. With everything I am. Aaron stirred between them and made a sound that stopped both their hearts. He laughed. It was small and soft and utterly perfect, a baby's giggle that seemed impossibly pure coming from a creature with glowing red eyes and lightning in his veins. He reached up with tiny hands, one grabbing Chinning's finger, one grabbing Ethan's. And the mark on his wrist pulsed once, crown and crescent united, glowing gold instead of crimson. The rain stopped. The storm clouds parted. And for the first time in 3 days, moonlight streamed through the broken windows, painting everything in silver. The kneeling vampires gasped. Some wept. Others whispered prayers in languages dead before Rome fell. The prophecy, someone breathed. The threefold bond. King, heir, and bridge. The trinity that will redeem the night. Ethan helped Chinning to her feet, keeping one arm around her waist as she swayed. She was stronger than she'd been, but still adjusting to the changes coursing through her body. What happens now? She asked quietly. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. This mortal cleaner who'd defied him, saved his son, bound herself to his bloodline, and somehow, impossibly, made him feel something he'd thought died with Celine. Hope. Now, he said slowly, you choose. Choose what? Whether to stay. Whether to accept what you've become. Ethan's jaw clenched. I won't force you. You've had enough stolen from you. Your freedom. Your humanity. Your life. He looked down at Aaron, sleeping peacefully between them. But my son needs you. The bond makes that clear. And he stopped, as if the words cost him everything. I would have you stay. If you're willing. Chinning stared at him. At this ancient vampire king who'd terrorized her, captured her, and then given everything to save her. At the baby who'd chosen her in an alley filled with trash and had just changed the fate of 2 species. At the citadel around her, damaged but standing, filled with immortals who would probably hate her forever. She thought about her old life. Her 4th floor walk-up. Her cleaning routes. Her loneliness. She'd been invisible. Disposable. Another forgotten soul in a city that didn't care. But Aaron had seen her. Had needed her. Had loved her in the way only children can, completely, purely, without condition. And Ethan. God help her, but when he looked at her like he was looking at her now, like she was precious, essential, irreplaceable, she felt something shift in her chest. I'm not human anymore, she said quietly. No. I'm not vampire either. No. So what am I? Ethan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but was the closest she'd ever seen from him. You're the bridge. The woman who reminded monsters what mercy feels like. The mother my son chose when the world abandoned him. He reached out and touched her face gently. You're the reason I still believe redemption is possible. Tears, human and crimson, mixed together, slid down Chinning's cheeks. I'll stay, she whispered. For him. For she stopped, unable to finish. But Ethan heard what she couldn't say. She saw it in his eyes. Felt it through the bond that now connected all 3 of them. For us, he finished softly. Aaron made another happy sound, and above them, lightning danced across the clearing sky, not destructive, but beautiful. Blue and gold and crimson intertwined, forming patterns that looked almost like wings. The vampires in the throne room began to kneel, one by one, until the entire court was bowing not just to their king, but to the mortal woman who stood beside him. The cleaner who'd picked an heir from trash and changed the world. What do we do now? Chinning asked, looking at the destruction around them. Ethan gazed out at his damaged citadel, at his divided court, at the centuries of hatred and fear that still lay between their species. Then he looked down at Aaron, sleeping peacefully in the arms of the woman who'd given everything to save him. Now, Ethan said, his voice carrying through the throne room and beyond, to every vampire in his domain, we rebuild. Not the old ways of fear and domination, but something new. Something my queen would have wanted. Something my son deserves. He turned to address his people, and his voice rang with ancient power. Let it be known throughout all the immortal realms and the mortal world beyond, the woman Chinning Witiker is under my protection. She is bonded to the royal heir. She is the bridge prophesied in our oldest texts. And any who harm her will face my wrath eternal. He paused, then added softer, for her alone. She is the mother of my son, and the salvation of my soul. Chinning's breath caught. In the ruins of a throne room, surrounded by vampires and storm and impossible magic, she'd found what she'd been searching for her entire life without knowing it. A family. A purpose. A place where she mattered. Dawn was breaking over Grimvale City when they finally descended from the citadel. The fog that always shrouded the mortal realm was parting, revealing streets washed clean by rain. Somewhere in that city, Chinning's old life waited, her apartment, her job, the world that had never noticed her. But she wasn't going back to that. Not anymore. She stood between 2 worlds now, Ethan on one side, regal and terrifying and somehow hers, Aaron in her arms, the heir of darkness who'd chosen light because she'd shown him compassion. The woman who picked a child from trash, Ethan murmured, watching the sunrise with eyes that no longer burned with rage, but with something softer, became the mother of a kingdom reborn. Chinning looked up at him, then down at Aaron, whose red eyes were watching the dawn with wonder. The baby smiled, fangs and innocence and impossible promise all mixed together. And Chinning smiled back. Because sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it's found in alleys filled with garbage. Sometimes it's wrapped in orange safety vests and hummed in songs you don't remember learning. Sometimes it looks like a pale baby with crimson eyes. And sometimes, just sometimes, the monster becomes the hero. The cleaner becomes the queen. And fate, against all odds, reverses. Aaron laughed again, and lightning painted the sky in colors of redemption. The night was over. A new age had begun. And three souls, bound by blood, magic, and love, stood together as the world awakened to greet them. And that's how a poor cleaner picking a little boy from trash became the bridge between two worlds and the mother of a kingdom reborn. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It means the world to this storyteller's heart. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next epic tale. And tell me in the comments, what was your favorite moment? Where are you watching from? What time is it there right now? I love knowing which corner of the world is listening to these stories. Remember, compassion can change everything. Even monsters can be redeemed. And sometimes, the most extraordinary destiny begins with a simple act of kindness. Until the next story, stay kind, stay curious, and never walk past someone who needs help. You never know whose fate you might reverse. Every soul matters. Every story deserves to be told. See you in the next one.